All right, ladies, it's time to get started. I am really excited about today's topic and the Song of Songs. And I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, the love and the poetry and everything, but I think it's so incredibly important and relevant to study not only just the Song of Songs and the poetry and the story of it, but to have a good biblical understanding of marriage and the marriage bed and what that actually should mean. In fact, overall in the church, not necessarily real life, but overall in the church, we have done a very poor job of educating our young people in godly sex and what our attitude should be and how it should be expressed in marriage. In fact, I'm going to take a moment, just a second, to put a little plug in for the women's conference this weekend. There's still time to sign up if you haven't, if you're kind of on the fence. They actually have a breakout session on the topic of biblical sex. And so if that's something that you're struggling with or you're curious about, whether you're married or not, we can always get a deeper understanding. I encourage you to check that out. I think it's going to be really good. So, um, and even if you don't want to have that breakout session, still go to the women's conference. It's going to be a great time. Anyways, we just got through talking through Ecclesiastes, and I know some people think that it's just such a downer book and it's so depressing. I actually consider it a little bit encouraging because to me it takes the pressure off. I don't have to strive for greatness. I don't have to have what everybody else has. I don't have to pursue all these lofty goals and perfection in order to be happy or to feel accomplished. Because it's all worthless in the end, anyways. It's okay. I don't have to. All I need is God. And he is going to fulfill everything else. And so in that perspective, it actually is really encouraging to me. What's a little bit odd about the order of things is that Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes toward the end of his life as he was kind of reflecting back. Now, as we're looking forward to Song of Solomon or Song of Songs, as it's called, it's more towards the beginning of his career, of his life. So he's all full of hope and full of love, as we see. But before I begin, I honestly also want to acknowledge that I know some of you have very, very painful pasts when it comes to sex or things that have happened to you or things that you've experienced. Just be encouraged, okay? This isn't supposed to be a condemnation or a place of shame to where it says, oh, I haven't experienced this elation of love, therefore I must be doing something wrong or something must be wrong with me. That's not what it's saying. And even for you younger little girls over here giggling in the corner, I'm talking to you a lot this whole time, yep. This isn't going to be a blueprint either for what it's supposed to have to be. You meet this handsome guy in the field and fall madly in love and you ride off into the sunset. Like, that's not what that's supposed to be either. It is celebrating love, but if you're looking for that, what it actually is supposed to be, we know that real love is commitment and hard work. Okay? Amen. Preach it. And we know that in the end, when we get to heaven, marriage, sex is going to be completely done away with. Now, why would God want to take away one of the most beautiful gifts he has given to man when we reach heaven? Well, in Matthew 22:30, it says, for in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are like the angels in heaven. That's because the full expression of true intimacy is completely realized when we get to heaven. We will no longer need the physical expression of sex to feel completely whole and complete and valued in Jesus. In Revelation 19:7, it says, let us rejoice and exult and give him, God, the glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride, the church, has made herself ready, which is our ultimate goal, to be the bride of Christ. So, Song of Psalms, we know this is the last of our wisdom books in our little sequence, number 5. Next week, we're going to move on to the major prophets, so enjoy the poetry before we get into some deeper things next week. But of course, it's a book of love. the bride and groom, or the wife and the husband, celebrating with exuberant passion God's wonderful gift, not only by describing intimate dimensions of love, the physical, the emotional, the spiritual, but to affirm the sanctity of marriage. And it's a picture of God's love for his people. Solomon obviously couldn't look ahead in the future and see Jesus, so he couldn't have written it as a direct allegory of Jesus' love. But we do see, because we do have Jesus looking back, how God uses what Solomon writes to reveal his heart and his love for his bride. And we also see little nuggets of things that actually do point to Jesus. So as you read, look for those little nuggets that do that you can actually see Jesus in this passage. So it starts with a story, and it's actually most likely a true story with real people that happened in real places. The story starts as Solomon is visiting various parts of his kingdom and happens upon a beautiful peasant woman working hard in the vineyard. He scares her and she runs away. But after that meeting, he cannot get her out of his mind. He cannot stop thinking about her and just longs to go meet her again. So he disguises himself as a shepherd and starts to befriend her, and that's where their love story grows. He wins her love and eventually reveals his identity as the king and asks her to go back to Jerusalem. And that Solomon and his beloved are finally getting married, and this is where the book begins. So it's a series of 7 poems. It's not necessarily in chronological order, describing the first meeting of the two, their engagement, their wedding, the wedding night, the growth of their marriage after the wedding. Like I said, Solomon has probably wrote this in the very early years of his reign before he had so many wives. But we know that even later, as he wrote Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, looking back, he even says that rejoice in the wife of your youth. That's Proverbs 5:18 and 19. Let your fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of your youth as a loving deer and a graceful doe. Let her breast satisfy you at all times and be always enraptured with her love. And then also, as we just read in Ecclesiastes 9:9, kind of the same thing. Rejoice in the wife of your youth. She is the gift that God has given you for your labor. So reflection, I think he kind of regrets all his wives a little bit. He's like, no, I wish I could go back to that moment where love was pure, where it was right, where it was what God had supposed to be. Song of Psalms, the Hebrew is Shir Hashirim, I think how you say it. But it really just means the finest song or the most beautiful song. And they would often sing this as they would go to at the tabernacle or on Sabbath days, certain passages of the Song of Psalms. Key verse is chapter 6, verse 3. I am my love's, and my love is mine. He browses among the lilies. Now, lilies is a symbol of royalty, as purple is of great honor and status. So she is saying, recognizing the kingship of her lover, knowing that she is not worthy to be with him, but he still loves her, just as we are not worthy to be the bride of Christ, but he still chooses us. Again, key term, love. Romantic poetry, the lovers, the bride and groom, refer to each other passionately. You'll see different words refer to love or lover in different translation. The NLT is my love or love. Others might have terms like beloved or lover. But let's look at the overall view of what the Bible actually says about love, because this is just one kind. Now, in English, we use the word love for lots of different ways. Like we say, oh, I just love coffee. It's my favorite too. Oh, I love that puppy too. I love my husband. We use the same word, but in the Greek, they have several different ones. So if you look, the first is phileo, but it's a form of brotherly love or fondness of friendship. Eros, although this Greek word isn't actually used in the Bible, it is a concept of that very intimate, committed relationship love, and it's presented in Song of Solomon. Storge, storage. It's not storage. I would pronounce it storage more of like a French, but I don't know exactly how you would say that. But that's like the natural like heart fondness, affection for son or daughter. And then the true Jesus' love, agape love, the love that we strive for, the only love that will truly fulfill us. His unconditional love, that kind of love that is chosen, not just felt, that God has for us and we should strive to have for him and to each other. Moving on for our themes. Now, yes, sex is a big theme of this book. Again, it is something beautiful, a gift that God has given us, and we should be able to celebrate and enjoy that. He does, however, put restrictions and boundaries on sex, and so that we can enjoy it to its full freedom of expression. It's supposed to be between one man and one woman committed to each other in marriage. God wants sex to be motivated by true love. And one of the tests of true love is waiting until they put a ring on it. Otherwise, it's not love. It's selfishness. But he wants true sex to be motivated by love, selflessness, commitment, and not love. Not lust, I mean. You've heard maybe Titus Ledger say the analogy of like a fire and fireplace. We all love a good fire. It's warm. If it's outside, we can roast our marshmallows and our hot dogs, and it's so fun to sit around the fire and enjoy it. But what happens once that little spark jumps out? Starts a little bit of a blaze. That fire isn't so fun anymore, right? Fire is good where it's supposed to be, but not when it's burning down my house. When you experience sex and any other contents beyond what it's supposed to be, it'll burn your house down. Next is love, true love, marriage. Love is what brings us together today. I'm sorry, I had to stick that in. As a relationship develops, you see the beauty and wonder of romance unfold between Solomon and his bride. The intense power of love affects the hearts, the minds, the bodies of the two lovers. And because love is such a powerful expression of feeling and commitment, it's not to be regarded very casually. We cannot manipulate others. We cannot condemn others. It should not be prematurely encouraged in a relationship. Which leads to the next part of love, which is the commitment. Power of love requires more than the language or feeling, the feelings of warm and fuzzy love. Okay, and since sexual expression is such an important part of our identity, we need the boundary of marriage to safeguard that love and being committed to each other. It's a celebration of daily commitment between a husband and wife. So while romance keeps the marriage interesting, it's the commitment that keeps the romance from dwindling away. The decision to commit yourself to your spouse alone only begins at the marriage altar and must be maintained daily, and sometimes it's hard. But it's worth it. Next is beauty. You see in chapter 5, verse 9, a woman of rare beauty, he says. The two lovers praise the beauty they see in each other. The language they use shows spontaneity and mystery of love, but the praise isn't limited to just physical beauty. Beauty of personality, moral purity should also be praised. Ever heard the phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder? So this book is an example of how when we truly love somebody for who they truly are, it doesn't matter about their physical appearance as much, because we all know as we age, things start sagging, things don't work as well, hairline starts receding, get a little more of a gut right in here. All those things happen to both men and women, but guess what? The love can still be just as pure and just as vibrant as the day you're married, because you're in love with the person of who they are rather than their looks. It's the inward qualities that don't fade: spiritual commitment, integrity, sensitivity, and sincerity. And ladies, those are the things that you need to look for in a man. It's not the big muscles, okay? I promise, those will not last forever. Do they love God? Do they have integrity? Are they going to uphold what is right? Those are the things you need to look for. Problems, trouble in paradise. Over time, in every relationship, no matter how good it is or how well you try to maintain it, you're going to have feelings of loneliness, indifference, isolation. You see that reflected between Solomon and his bride. During those times, love can grow cold, barriers can be raised, but you see that through communication, through persistence, through commitment, the lovers are reconciled and their love is renewed. In verse 2:15, it says, "Catch all the foxes, all those little foxes, before they ruin the vineyard of love." This is a warning to when problems start to come up, even if it seems like a little problem, to not bury it, to not sweep it under a rug, to not ignore the problem. Because if you do, those things are going to come back really quickly and become a huge problem that you're going to have to deal with later. And when you get to that point, it's really hard to retract. Now, there is hope. If you have been to that point where a big problem has gotten even bigger, don't be ashamed. We're all in this together. Please seek help. There is hope. God can restore and mend what is broken. And last is the theme of innocence. You'll hear this phrase several times. Don't awaken love until the time is right. The speaker addresses the daughters of Jerusalem, which is the young, unmarried women in Israel's capital city, and gives them some wise advice to not awaken love. Awaken love. It's a solemn charge by one who has found love and experienced its joys, that to not be in a hurry. Many times, especially as women, we think that we are going to be fulfilled, satisfied, complete if we give ourselves, if we awaken love before it's time. But in the end, it only leads to emptiness and shame. And it's hard. It is so hard to wait. A lot of times we fall victim to what's called puppy love or infatuation. And the speaker in Song of Solomon would save us all the grief that comes with waking love before it's time. Okay, it's warning against becoming so desperate to find love that we start looking for it into all the wrong places and trying to manufacture the feelings of love when there is even none to begin with. And that doesn't just apply to those who aren't married. Sometimes even in our marriage, when we're not feeling loved at the moment, we seek it in other places, maybe not in a physical relationship, but it could come in the form of escapism, where you're reading a romance book or gaming or the music that you listen to. There's other things that we pursue, that we chase, that will not fulfill us, that we try to escape from the situation that we're in instead of finding either resolution in our relationships or complete fulfillment in Jesus. Waiting isn't easy. It's really hard. But when the time is right, love will bloom. And it's wisdom to guard our hearts. It will be worth the wait, and it will be beautiful. So, Blueprint. As I was going through this, my New Living Translation Bible had a slightly different blueprint than like my ESV Bible. So yours might look a little bit different as far as like the headings, but these are the basic elements. It starts with the wedding day or the wedding night. Some would say that it would start with the courtship, but it's pretty much there. And then you also see where it describes the wedding a little more detail in chapter 3. But the couples express their deep love verbally to each other, to those around them. The words are uplifting, show deep respect. Then you move on to the memories of their courtship. The woman expresses insecurities about her looks, desirabilities. How could you love me? I'm just a poor peasant woman. But he reaffirms his love. And just as we also look at our own faults, how could God love me? I've messed up too much. I'm not good enough. I don't have these talents. God affirms his love to us in his word. Then we move on to memories of engagement. And we see as time progresses, their love for each other grows and their communication grows and deepens. Then you have a troubling dream. This section shows that even when lovers are passionate about each other, our insecurities can still come to the surface. The dream reveals that the woman is afraid that the man will leave her, but instead of running and hiding, she responds by pursuing him and restoring that communication. And then in chapter 6, you see praising the bride's beauty. The man's commitment to her is renewed. He says, no other woman is as beautiful as her. Words that all of us long to hear, right? 6, the bride's tender, or chapter 7, the bride's tender appeal. As the marriage matures, this is after marriage, love and freedom between partners should increase. And the girl takes initiative in the lovemaking because her partner makes her feel secure and valued in a relationship. And then they conclude the whole thing with the power of love. This final description of love includes some very significant characteristics, like what we see in 1 Corinthians 13, which is what we normally call the love chapter. We see that a love is a very strong force, and it is priceless. And it must be treasured as a gift from God. We must strive to reflect that perfect love, that agape love that comes from God himself. So in conclusion, it's a beautiful thing to celebrate love, to celebrate marriage, and the sanctity of intimacy that God has designed. But it shouldn't be idolized, which is what we find so much in our world today. People chasing love, sex, perfection. Your husband can't save you. No matter how wonderful he is not going to save you. Physical pleasure will ultimately cease to fulfill you. When relationships are broken, when body parts don't work, if you are single or widowed or divorced, to take heart that your happiness, your fulfillment, your holiness isn't dependent on your relationship status. Only Jesus can ultimately fulfill and satisfy your desires. When everything else fails, Jesus never fails. Your past does not define you. The mistakes that you made is not who you are. Your future will not fulfill you. What you hope you will accomplish or achieve will ultimately, as we saw in Ecclesiastes, be vanity. Your present is not a prison, whether it's a good present or a not so good one. It's going to change. It can change, and it will change. You are not stuck. It's Jesus' call to draw closer to him, to his sweet embrace, to be wrapped in his healing power of his two scarred hands, where you are truly safe, where you are fully known and fully loved and accepted. This week is a little bit different because there's only 8 chapters, so it's really short. So go through your reading as normal, answer the questions like you normally do. But if you only do 1, maybe 2 chapters a day, that should take you 5-10 minutes tops. That's not very long. I encourage you, take some extra time to spend with just you and Jesus. Just soaking in his presence, just receiving his love. I love that Christy, at the beginning of our time today, came to her knees as a symbol of surrender and acceptance of who God is. If that's what you need to do, do that. Take your phone, put it completely in the other room. Don't just have it like to the side or turned off. It's still a distraction if you can see it. It is for me. I know, I've known from experience. If it means taking a walk outside in the beauty of God's creation, if it means turning on some worship music and dancing in your living room, that's my go-to after everybody is asleep and my husband won't look at me weird. Okay, but whatever it is, take 5, 10, 15 minutes, as long as you can, just spending time with Jesus, the true lover, your creator who loves you and knows you the best. I promise you will come back next week changed. Okay, not to ask him for things, not to just go through and make your list of demands, or not just to wait for an answer, just to simply be with God. You will not regret it. and may you fall in love a little more with Jesus every day and experience the sweetness of his love.